White Walker perpetuated offenses are considered especially heinous. In Westeros, 4 dedicated friends investigate and discuss these vicious episodes as members of an elite squad known as A Podcast Has No Name. I'm
I'll
Ambush.
start it. I don't
Oh,
care.
okay.
Hi,
All right.
I'm App by proxy.
Nope.
Uh,
Nope. I'm not doing that. That's not going to make the edit.
no.
No.
I'm being torte, kente. And that's Cash.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And I'm Ambush.
I'm Castro, the innocent victim here.
What? And I'm Morg. And we are a podcast has no name.
We are a peculiar bunch. Tonight, or today, whenever time y'all take a listen to this, listeners, we are going to discuss the excellent miniseries When They See Us by Ava DuVernay about the exonerated 5.
Hello.
We're no longer calling them the Central Park 5. We're just mentioning that for recognition's sake, but they are now to be known and referred to as the exonerated 5, because that's what happened. This is a very powerful and emotional series for all of us. They took time to watch it. I had to watch it in pieces. My colleagues did too. So just bear with us. We're going to go through a lot. We're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down for y'all. And, we're going to do our thing. Our podcast has no name. You know what I'm saying? But we can talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about. We ain't got no name. All right.
We are a podcast that changes name too. So that's also up there. Let's not forget.
We changed our name?
If you go to a podcast, change its name, it also goes to our site.
Internet trickery. I don't even know, y'all. I don't even know. My IT team is tick.
That was a very knee jerk, and I'm still resting on that. I'm not, I wouldn't change my mind for the world. It was a very knee jerk reaction to a joke Morgan cracked about what we're going to do with the podcast now that Game of Thrones sucked. That last episode killed us. So what we're going to do? We got to change our name. I was like, oh, podcast changed its name. And then like 5 minutes later, the domain was purchased and redirected. And we're good. We got them both.
That's right. So we are a podcast has no name and a podcast changes name. I don't know how that's going to work with business cards, but we got a promo team for that. We got a bunch of teams. I never met these people, but we have a bunch of teams and they work.
They're around.
And we on Patreon.
We got a new Patreon, which we will mention another 10 times during this broadcast.
Yes.
Indeed.
Write it down as we say. But all right, back to the topic at hand. When They See Us. Let's start with what were some initial thoughts on the documentary?
Docuseries.
And excuse me, sorry. And forgive me because I'm still used to docuseries. And I want to ask an addendum to that. So, what are your initial thoughts on the docuseries? Is a story like this better told in a documentary form or in dramatized, high-skilled directors like we saw with this series?
Wait, I'm sorry. I think I have to just make a slight correction, and that it's not a docuseries either. It's just a mini-series.
Mini-series? Okay, so edit that. And
so, they're not trying to say this is, a documentary like the way that they go. So it is a dramatized version.
But there's a lot of accuracy. So, all right.
Absolutely. I'm trying to say, I think those distinctions matter when
they do. They do.
When you talk about it. So it's listed as an American drama miniseries.
And I'm going to leave all this in because those descriptions, those differences matter. Yeah.
Sure. All right. So moving forward, let's call it miniseries.
There we go.
Miniseries.
For all those. Yeah. Okay. So, let's break this first section down into 2 parts. So let's just ask initial thoughts on the miniseries. More.
Whew. Initial thoughts. This is breathtaking. This is heartbreaking. I watched the documentary about the Central Park 5 that came out, the Ken and Sarah Burns one. I watched that a long time ago. And I've followed, certain things when things happen in the case. I've paid attention to it when they do videos, but I've never um, done more than that, right? Like I haven't uh, researched it by any stretch. What
Okay.
I wasn't prepared for, like I thought, okay, like I know this story, and like I've seen that documentary a few times, like I know this story. Nothing prepares you for a dramatized version of a documentary. So documentaries are meant to be just here are the facts and here are the things, and there is no emotion because it's not trying to sway you necessarily. It's trying to just objectively give you information. And the dramatization of it gives you so much emotion that it was hard to handle. And I said to Am at one point, like, I remember watching TV with my mom or movies with my mom, or and both of my parents. And my dad never showed emotion. Like he loves comedies and he'll laugh all day, but he's not going to sit and watch something that makes him cry. My mom will find a way to cry. Is the way that I saw it as a kid. Like, damn, you cry at everything. A commercial, a TV show, like anything. There are tears flowing. Um, and as I was sobbing the entire fourth episode, I was like, I get part of this now. Like, you just have so many different experiences in your life, and
Right, they tie you to those. I'm more emotional now
exactly.
in my older age. I'll say in my 40s, I'm way more emotional. Something specific about, you tie into certain things that happen in your life. So my father passing makes it hard for me to watch like hospital scenes or people with their dad,
Yeah.
regardless of what my relationship was with my dad. It just makes it
Hmm.
hard for me to see people lose their dad, and that happened in this series. So stuff with fathers just gets like a little bit more tear jerky.
Yeah.
And now I'm not, of course, and Ann probably went through this. We're not in the hyper masculine highway, so I cry. I let it all out.
Hmm.
I wish I was doing acting still, because now I can cry kind of on command. I just got to think of something and it'll happen. So like, yeah, when you're younger, you're taught, and unfortunately, we're taught, yo, man up. When you used to cry if somebody hit you in the chest, yo, man,
Hmm.
suck it up,
Hmm.
which
Right.
sometimes is appropriate somewhere. But now I don't know. I don't know about you, Aaron, but I know the worst fighters were the ones that started crying. They was ready to kill you.
Oh yeah,
They were not.
it was a wrap. It was a wrap.
It
You
was
learn
like,
to avoid
yo,
them Jones.
it's tears streaming and they couldn't even see. That blind fury. That's what blind fury is from, boy. Blurry eyed guys fucking crying and shit, fighting.
That's hilarious. Well, now
Real
I
talk.
understand the crying at movies, and in a
Mm-hmm.
way that I didn't understand before. I
Mm-hmm.
connected with so many different things in this story, and it's an incredibly emotional, hard watch. And I challenge everybody. I will say this: every white person that says it's too hard for me, I challenge you to watch that. Because
Mm-hmm.
if it's hard for you to watch something for 4 hours, imagine living it. Imagine being a part of it. Imagine knowing and having people in your lives that this has happened to. So
Thank you.
it's important for you to understand what other people. This isn't an isolated incident in the way that this is the only people that have been exonerated for a
Right.
crime they
This
didn't
isn't a
commit.
moment in
Uh,
history.
yeah,
They just
this
let
is
out two guys
this
that
is
were
the
in
one
jail
we
for
know
30
about.
some years with DNA. They
Right.
just let these two, nephew and his uncle,
Yeah.
wrongly accused, DNA. They just let them out after 30 some years. The uncle is 60 something, and the nephew is like in his 40s now. Whatever. They were
Mm.
in jail since they were 18 and 31, respectively,
Oh
something
my
like that.
God.
And so my thing is like, and I want people to understand this because this is a color and cultural thing. There is no way anybody in this planet can relate to somebody in, improperly in prison. There's nothing like that. Um, I want to get to the thoughts in the series, but I just want to say something really poignant. Just starting. Corey hit me so hard because I did his timeline.
Mm.
Yeah.
He was in jail the longest. He was in jail from 89 to 2000, uh,
Two.
89 to 2002, right? 14
Yeah.
years, right? While he was in jail,
Well, it's
89 to 2000.
1990. So,
Yeah,
so
I need to start in the 80s. I need to start in just in the 80s when everything started for them. While they were caught up in everything, 89 on. and then when
Okay.
the sentence started, I went to high school. I went to college and graduated. Stayed an extra year and a half. I had a job, and I was sitting there watching 9/11 on my TV just like he was in in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And I did all of those things that take extended periods of time in your life, while he was in jail,
In
falsely
prison.
in prison. Excuse me.
Mm.
And that just rocks me. I did all of that with my life while he was in stasis,
Right.
stuck. That's in, I bow to him and all of them, but I'm in ultimate reverence to them to survive that because
Yeah.
It's an
I can't say I did.
incredibly catastrophic injustice what happened to them and what happens in this system that is not just, um, taking people's lives for a headline, for a conviction, for any reason that isn't that person did it is evil.
Yep.
And
Yes,
we know that there are way more Lindas and way more of those
thank
detectives
you.
than there are the good apples that we hear about.
Yeah,
Because
look,
we
the
come
minute.
in contact with them. What There's a disconnect in how people see the police because their contact is completely different. When you've spent half of your life being harassed by the police, you can't
Yes,
come out of it and go, oh, the flashing lights are behind me. This is not a cause for alarm. Like you immediately panic. There's there's nothing like that feeling of this is a person who's here to make me feel like I'm not here. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, yeah, it's really hard for me to articulate right now. I should have done more to be articulate, but it's terrifying. And when you've had police contact that has never been positive, and you haven't done anything wrong, this story isn't far off. This story could have been my story. This story could have been Castro's story.
I was 13 and I used to be out at night sometimes. That definitely could have been me. Easy. Yeah, easy. Like,
So yeah, it's hard for me right now. With this is it's hard for me to continue to see Black trauma. However, it is so relevant still, and somehow seeing things in this kind of way is more poignant than a documentary. It hits you differently, and all I want to happen here is for people to then not believe the documentary, then do research on it. Simply do research on it, and tell me if
yep.
you think there's a reason why maybe they said they did something that they didn't do. Because
Thank
there's
you.
a lot of reasons why anyone, adult or child, admits to things they didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
But children, especially, I watch it with my own children where they will cover for their sibling in a way that's like, why the hell are you admitting to this really bad act when you didn't have anything to do with it? There's so
Hmm.
many reasons. And for them, in that moment, it may just be, I don't want to see the other one get in trouble. For this is full blown coercion by adults.
Right. Ultimately, for all of
And
them. Go ahead.
if you've never been interrogated by the police, I don't want to hear what you think you would do if you were interrogated by the police.
Right.
I
Thank
don't
you.
actually care.
Yeah. Yep.
And do understand that your interrogation is likely going to be different than mine or than any person of color, and certainly a Black man.
Never unless a
Like
black
Thank you.
child.
Thank
right,
you.
because
Black
Black
boys.
children, Black boys are Black men to racist white people.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. Am?
Sorry, I took us off.
No.
Am initial
No,
thoughts
you
of
good.
the
Yeah. No. That. Listen. That's what this is.
Because we're
You know
gonna
what I'm
circle
saying?
back. We're gonna
That's
circle
that's
back.
exactly what
Did
this
you kind of
is.
answered the second part?
Yeah.
Okay.
She answered the second part, and then she also said something that I was going to say. Which I'm glad the point got made, regardless of how I do feel that the dramatizations are more important than the documentaries for that reason, because it needs to happen in that order. The dramatization needs to strike the emotional chords to make you to move you to action, either to do more research or back away. But it needs to happen emotionally first. Then whatever happens after that, that's you making a decision of how you're going to roll with it. But there's too much information out here. Like, hearing about the housing crisis was one thing. Watching The Big Short uh, is something completely
Mm-hmm.
different. That's something completely different. And it again, the dramatizations are important. Overall initial thoughts. I went into this. I was dreading it because I'm at a place now, or I'm not really concerned about crying. I cried in Endgame. Uh, I'm just at a place now where it makes me like I'm traumatized. I'm traumatized by seeing all the videos online, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, seeing something on the news. I'm continuously traumatized. And I remember parts of this story happening, by watching the documentary, when it first came out, and just getting more and more familiar with the story. And then a similar situation with Khalif Browder. I haven't watched his documentary. I haven't, because that I remember as it was happening, you know, when he got out and was doing all the talk shows and all of that stuff. I remember all of that happening. So the fact that he's not here, I just can't I can't watch that documentary. It's gonna take me a minute. I know I need to, but it's just like, so going into this, I was having that dread from the first opening scene. But one of the things uh, Morgan and I kept saying to each other as we were watching it, like, we know what's happening. It's a slow moving train wreck, but the cinematography was incredible. The way she captured black life in that first episode, with just the nuances of just the different things the camera was picking up on the street, like, it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh my god, it's like we watching Crooklyn the series. Like, what is happening? It was so, and that's why it's important. That's why it's important. Representation is important. We have to have black people telling our own stories. We have to.
Yep.
The way that we experience life is completely different. And it takes a black creative to be able to give that back to us, to make you really have some ownership. Like, oh man, like, that's the peak of representation right there, for real. Seriously. So,
Mm-hmm.
hats off to Ava. Straight up.
For sure. Castro.
My thoughts on the doc was I echo Am's sentiment. I was very scared. I was very knowledgeable of this case. It didn't feel right from when it happened. I had a hard
Mm-hmm.
time believing, all of the newspaper hype back in the 90s and the 80s. But it was on every newspaper, wilding these raping teens, and I'm like, I just didn't believe we were acting like that. Like, New York is a bad place. Like, don't get me wrong. But when they started letting out the ages of these boys, I was like, oh man, this don't feel right. And then when they got exonerated, I knew it. I didn't take me a long time to wrap my brain around, but just the Trump ad. So, anyway, we're going to get into it. So, I was just bracing myself
Mm.
because I knew it and I knew the details. But again, when you're younger and you're paying attention to media back then, that day, through print, very focused opinions, city by city, you take what
Mm-hmm.
they give you. So, you just take it as they called another five of us or whatever, whatever you want to think about it back then. But then as you get older, things don't make sense. And I remember the boys not wanting to admit that they did it, and stuff just wasn't adding up. So when this came about, I did not see the documentary about it, but like I said, I watched, multiple PBS little specials and other like CBS things. So I said, you know what? I want to relive it with their input, now that I knew how much they had to do with it, and Ava is such an auteur, you know. So I wanted to see it from that perspective. I feel like this miniseries was very important because I felt like we didn't get the boys' perspective, even though they got exonerated. I just remember the papers painting them to be one way. So I was glad to like
Mm-hmm.
meet them in their adult life and the interviews afterwards, and in this portrayal.
Let
So
me ask you a
I was
question.
bracing for it, but I was looking for it. Yes.
Let me ask you a question. This is usually Castro's spiel, but let me ask you guys a question. Uh, Going back to what you were saying earlier about everything that happened in your life while they were locked up. wasn't this the
Mhm.
phrase the Central Park Five? Was that just like a constant in black culture? Like, you remember them boys that got, yeah, them boys that got locked up, Central Park Five. Like, they were just, that was like an existing thing
I remember it being,
throughout.
I don't remember being in many songs, but I remember that was the title, and that's how we referred to it.
Right. Like, exactly. Like, it was just part of, oh, lexicon is the right word, but it was just part of our
Yeah,
existence. Okay. So it was just part of our existence that these five boys had got locked up for something they didn't do. And it was just like, oh yeah,
right.
like them. It was just, so it's crazy to get this dramatization right now, and of course with everything else going on, it's crazy to get the dramatization of something that effectively concluded a while ago. They got their settlement in
Definitely.
Yeah,
2012, right? Was it 2012?
about 2012, probably
Right,
2014.
Yeah, I believe so.
right. But this is allowing us to fully process it, like you said, giving it from the boy's perspective, and getting all of that insight. It just really changes it, and the fact that we don't even call them the Central Park Five anymore truly speaks to how it affected us.
Mhm.
Like, it's almost disrespectful. Like, we don't do that no more.
Right.
We passed that.
And
That,
it is, right? Like if you think about it, it is.
yeah,
Why did they get to have that label?
yeah,
Even, like well into their actual adulthood, they're still considered the Central Park Five. Like, yeah, no, they've been exonerated.
right.
It's as y'all can see, listeners are here. This is just heavy. This is just at its heaviest. This is the most dense thing I've watched in a while. Just in terms of like the weight and breadth of it,
Yeah.
and how I really had to take a break. So let me ask y'all this next question: does it take popular directors to spark change, anger, and/or awareness? We heard about the Central Park Five, now the exonerated five, years ago. Not to mention there have been other docs covering these same cases. So how do we stop injustices from being just another hashtag here today, gone tomorrow? Is it putting it in these miniseries forms? Is that having more lasting power or more resonance? What do y'all think? And
I think the effectiveness of documentaries and the style of documentaries has changed over the years, um, and the effectiveness of miniseries, especially used this way, with our desire to binge things, and just the way we process entertainment now. It was the perfect vehicle. It really is the perfect vehicle. I'm not sure if it needed to be a specific director, like a named director. It definitely helped, but I just think making it a Netflix special, it heightens the probability that people are going to watch it from the rip, you know. And then we do like series, we do like episodes, so making it 4 episodes was, yeah, yeah. I think um it's more so that than anything, because like you said, this isn't the first time we've heard about it.
So I
it's on
yeah, I
crack.
don't know that it takes that it's a particular director.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I kind of feel the same way. Like I think that getting information how you best receive it is the best way to start. So again, I'm not saying people should watch a mini series and make, you know, their decisions based on that. Um, but you have to have something to connect to. And if you're not a person that connects with someone else's plight just off the rip, and so facts are just handed to you, and you don't immediately go, "Oh my God, that sounds terrible." Maybe you need to see it that way. And a documentary is just kind of, you know, information that just kind of falls, and you need to fill it in, and you don't really have an emotion or, you know, a feeling about it. So I think it's I think it's important to be able to dramatize these things, um, and factually. Like I don't, from what I know of the case, think there was some sort of egregious, fuck up here that was like, we're just going to make things up so that these kids look innocent rather than telling their stories. You know what I mean? Um, and as long as you're doing that, as long as you're presenting the information this way, I think that's a really, really accessible point of entry to understanding larger, bigger issues.
Um, I don't necessarily think they're. I agree with you more. I don't necessarily think you need to have a certain like a star director, but I do think that the visual style can help bring the bring it all home for some people. Um,
Sure.
I think sometimes the news cycle can go in one person's ear and out the other, but like something dramatized, they might just be like, "Oh, I remember that part," which makes me,
Hmm.
remember this historical event or whatever. Um, I when I think about this question I pose, I think about Spike Lee, and I think about I learned a lot through Spike. So I agree with you in terms of like as far as catalysm, as far as it being a catalyst, these are great points to start. Because maybe you're not into a whole bunch of heavy information. Maybe you're not going to go to the library and look up microfiche or whatever. But you should always seek out the information. Don't be naive
Right.
and don't be ignorant. There's no excuse for that in this day and age. That the ignorance to me, I think there's no excuse. Well, I didn't
It's
know.
willful.
That means you didn't look. So
Right. That's all. You didn't know that's on purpose.
right. And there's also something to be said. Like we say, we pick topics and we pick shows to talk about because there's a lot of public chatter. So there's a little high-minded. I think if you're putting out things that should be seen and remembered and recognized, and you're influenced by, hey, Twitter's talking about it. Let me look at it. So be it.
Hmm.
So be it. That's why I think that there was a tragedy in the Nat Turner movie because I feel like a lot of people should have saw it, whether they liked it or not. They should have saw it just to get that info. But all the other extraneous things that was going on around Homeboy,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
you know. So I think some people just need to see it with their eyes. I'll say
Right.
I'll say that. All right. So I want to ask y'all personally, how aware were you of the case when it first occurred? Did you talk about it with your parents? And if you can remember, what were your emotions during that time?
I didn't know about the case when it happened. I was 7, I think, 8 maybe, when it
Mm-hmm.
happened, and I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and New York news was New York news. You know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't like cable TV or cable news now, where
Yeah.
you know everything.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about it. I learned about it in college in a criminal justice class,
Mm.
and I learned very little about it. Like you just get a little bit. Um, but then in 2012, I watched that documentary, and I was really intrigued by it. It just seemed so simple, and it seemed simple in my class. I remember being like, well, the confessions are coerced, so what are we doing? You know, like what is there to even talk about?
Right.
And I couldn't get past that part. Like, so I was always intrigued by the entire thing. I didn't understand how that could ever move forward. Um, those confession tapes are trash. I mean, it's wild to me. So anyway, I never had that conversation with my parents about this particular case. Um, and I wasn't, like I said, it wasn't like I did extensive research on it, but I've known about this case for a long time.
Okay.
Um.
And
Yeah. It wasn't on my radar when it was happening. By the time I was made aware of it, they were still incarcerated, going through the whole process. But yeah, as it was actually happening, it definitely wasn't on my radar yet. I wasn't aware of, you know, anything anything like that actually happening. Like just yeah. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Do you remember it at the time?
Hmm?
You remember it at the time?
Yeah. So you know, if I don't say it enough, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. So I was around when it was going on. Um, it was in every paper. Like this is where the term wilding. I hate that term, but that's where it came up. And so once that term was birthed by the police or whoever was talking about the case at the time, like every paper ran with it. So you literally saw the word wilding on every newspaper everywhere. And I felt like they were trying. And me, I'm a kid. I'm a teenager at that point. I'm 13. I don't know that term. So it's not a term in the streets that we're using. So where'd y'all come up with that? And they're plastering it on every newspaper. It's the leading on every news story
Mm.
on television. You see wilding in big block letters, wilding, wilding, wilding. And so it was them trying to force juvenile, quote unquote, criminal activity upon us by them splattering
Super
everything they could find.
predators.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And so like I just remember one of my distinct memories was I never heard that term in the street. So what does that mean? And New York was it was a dangerous place, but we weren't just running around raping people. I'm not trying to discredit anybody that got that suffered sexual attacks, but it just was like it seemed so strange because yes, there were kids that ran afoul in the park, and there were crimes in the park, but it just seemed like this one was more vicious and a little more menacing, especially when they showed what the kids look like. So I don't remember talking to my mom specifically about it. We might have had a talk, but my talk with my mom leads me into the next part of this question. Did this incident that occurred or the environment around that time, you were a little too young, more, but did this spark, let me just ask you specifically, did this spark the conversation with your parents about how to act around police?
It didn't spark it. It was part of the um, frequent conversations. Like we get that conversation anytime we was leaving the house with the car keys. We get that conversation. Abbreviated versions of it. But as my parents became aware of this case, it was definitely look what's happening to these boys. Look what's happening to these boys.
Mm.
Remember what we've told you. Remember, you always get upset that we talking to you about. Look what's going on with these boys. It was really important that they got us to understand that yeah, you're a teenager. Yeah, you know everything you think you know. You can handle every situation. You're just built to handle the world. But there are things that will happen to you completely outside of your understanding and completely
Out of your
outside of
control.
your control. Understand that. You don't run the world like you think you do because you out of high school. No, the world will happen to you. And that was a really good example of it. It was just like there are certain things that, hey, and it's a wrap. And you had no part to play in it. But that was the extent, yeah.
I
Always that
remember
conversation.
also my mom reiterating to me that your youth will not protect you at all. In an idyllic society, being young, you're protected. Or let's protect the child. Let's
Mm.
circle the wagons around the children and the women. Um, but that's not the case. My mom was very direct in telling me that law enforcement and other powers that be do not see you for the age that you are.
You know what? Now that you
Not at
mention it,
all.
my pop used to tell me specifically about my size. He'd say, "You have to act older than you are because people are going to see your size and assume that you're older."
Hmm.
Flat out. He was like, they're not
And
going
I
to
was
look at you
small.
like a kid. They're not going to look at you like a teenager. They're not going to look at you like a child. They're going to look at you and treat you like an adult. I do remember him saying that. Yeah.
And I didn't have stature back then. So my mom was more telling me that they're gonna see you as a threat.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? Like, all right, my mom used to say this other analogy. She said, when you learn how to drive, I want you to drive like everybody out in the street can't drive,
There it
except for
is.
you. So that way you can always prepare for
That's what my
anything
dad
that
said
anybody
too.
else can do.
Yep.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? And so I remember being like, oh, okay. So I took that and adopted it properly. Every cop is crazy
Everyone.
and can fuck me up. And every encounter I have with them could lead to death. So watch for that. And then I'm telling y'all, and like me and cops had, I was 5 when a cop poked me with a nightstick, talking about what you doing here in my neighborhood.
Mm.
And that just rocked my mind because in my brain, I'm like, well, what are you doing here? I
Right.
live here. I never
Right.
seen you around Officer Charlie. But, you know, because I think we were kicking bottles. It's, to me, stuff that is just juvenile. It doesn't need extreme authority. You poking me with a nightstick when I'm 1/30 of size at that point.
Right.
So anyway, um, it was always a heightened awareness. And the cops where I grew up, they were occupying force studs. They were like roaches. They were in our neighborhood. Not one cop walked a beat. This wasn't Officer O'Malley swinging his nightstick. It was always cops around all the time,
Mm.
and they didn't even live there. So
Right, police in a whole different community.
Right.
yeah, didn't live there
Don't
at
know
all.
how to,
It was,
not talking to anyone, not community policing,
nope.
just in the community.
I put it like this: more, I didn't know any cops' names.
Right.
Right.
I could have stared at your badge a million. I didn't know your name. Oh, there they go. That's they were an oppressive mob, so they didn't need any individuality to me. They were
Right.
just
They didn't
arms of
want
an
it.
octopus.
That's not what they were there for.
Right.
Arms of an octopus. If I saw one, I was seeing them. I didn't think twice about it. So yeah, around this time, the conversations were frequent with me and my mom. Just in the sense that like I can't even imagine the fear my mom has, and I know that fear is like quantified now.
Oh
Of
yeah.
sending me out. I lived in New York. I rode the train to the
Yeah.
wherever and came back in the afternoon. Wow. You would think that an innocent plea from a parent to come in before the street lights come on is just like a way for you to keep mentally the time, but it's really, yo, I need to know you're home safe and
Yes.
them boys didn't
Before it's
snatch you
dark.
up because I'm phone call.
Exactly.
Real shit.
You know what I mean? Once the lights come on, it's been too late and you've been too exposed to that. You know.
Yep.
Anyway, okay, so stay on track, y'all. All right. Um, a quick question. Am, I want you to start this one. Why do you think the men, boys, and when they started, refused to admit guilt? Specifically, Corey during the second time his parole hearing came about,
Hmm.
and even during the parole group meetings. Why was this so important to the five?
Um, I think definitely, their upbringing had an issue to do with, had a part to play in that. I think them the way the cops did this to themselves, in the way they gave these kids a false sense of hope and trust. So
Mm-hmm.
when they laid the trust out, the kids are looking at it now like, okay, we're all on the same team. You tell me what I need to say. You told me if I say this stuff, I get to go home. We're all on the same team now. Okay, guys. So then afterwards, now that they're dealing with consequences of being misled, it's a quick snap out of it. Like, wait, no. I didn't do this. You know I didn't do this. You told me what to say.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, bro. Like we were no. You were giving me cues off camera. I'm repeating the things you're saying, and now I got to ride out by myself. Now I don't get to go home. No, I ain't do that. Yeah, I think that made it pretty. None of this was easy, but that made it a pretty solid decision. Like, nah, I'm not admitting to this shit because not only do I know I didn't do it, y'all know I didn't do it. Nah, what's the point of me admitting to it for who? For what? Like, nah. Mm-mm.
Morgan.
So, yes, I agree with Am. Uh, I think the level of manipulation that the police went through to
Mm.
get those confessions um, one is psychological torture, but is something that's easily recognizable when your situation is that of theirs. So you get manipulated by people and you don't even realize it. It's some small little thing, but or it's an ongoing thing if you're in an abusive situation. Um, but for this in particular, you immediately understand. Oh, you just manipulated the shit out of me. Like
Right.
I, oh, oh no, yeah, okay. So no, I definitely didn't do this, and I'm going to maintain that I didn't do this because I know for sure I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I said that I did or played a part or is all of the things that you just did and told me.
Right.
So did to me and told me. So when you're beating on somebody and telling them that other people already told on them and this and that, I mean, just from the fact that none of these kids said, yes, I did. I raped this woman.
Right.
For them all to give a, oh yeah, it was so and so because you just told me that everybody said that Raymond did it. Like all of that is just so messy. Anyway, I think you maintain your innocence when you know that this fight is impossible or is going to be the rest of your life anyway. So the only thing you can live with and kind of hope on is that someone hears your story and believes you.
Right.
So you have to keep telling that story. And the fact that none of the four boys that were tried as kids, um, the fact that they didn't have to do that in order as a condition of release. That's a thing that's in adult prisons, and that is such a form of abuse of control. That's like if you won't just admit to this, I mean, you're putting innocent people in jail.
Yeah.
The system knows that. So to have that little caveat in a parole hearing for people who are should be, exonerated but don't have money and don't have means or have exhausted appeals based on whatever. Um, to have that caveat to completely steal it from them, there's no reason to move forward. We what's the point of having a conversation if I don't admit to doing this?
Right.
Um, that's evil. That's not a form of justice in any way. That doesn't serve any purpose other than keeping someone in prison. That's it. That's not rehabilitative. That's not restorative.
Mm-mm.
It's just punitive. Sorry. Did I answer the question?
Oh
I
yeah.
don't
No,
know if I
you
answered
good.
the question.
Perfect. Um, I'll answer and just I watched a recent interview with Antron McCray.
Mm-hmm.
McCray's his last name, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And he was just relaying what happened in detail about how he kept denying that he did it. He wouldn't say he did it, and he took his father out the room, and then his father came in by himself, and just like the miniseries portrayed, he started barking on him. You gonna tell him what they want you to say, yell at him because obviously we know the fear that the father had about what
They
they could do to his
neutralized
son.
him.
Yeah, and then threaten him with his job security and stuff. And in that moment, he's on his way to work, so it's a very frightening thing for a black man that knows the system. That they're threatening his son with the system. But here's what got me about the interview, and it was kind of heartbreaking. So this is a current interview done within the last year or so. And they asked Antron, he said, and I can't. And they came back in and said, got the cops yelling at me, my pops yelling at me, and then it went the way it went. And then the interviewer asked him, did you come to a point of forgiveness with your father? Implying before he went, because his father passed. He
Hmm.
said, no. He
Mm.
said, I did not. I did not do that. And my father, helped them help me lie. And he said, I didn't want to. Why should I? He was a coward, and his eyes started welling up. He said, I lost my life. My whole
Oh
life
wow.
changed. And he still feels that to today. Antron actually admitted that he is struggling. They had on the Oprah Winfrey interview. I haven't watched it all yet. I think it's on Netflix and on her. Like they talk to the boys,
Yeah.
and Antron says, "I'm still struggling." to this day, even with all that settlement and all that thing that people think that might have made them whole or whatever.
Money don't mean shit.
No.
He's struggling, and he still never forgave his father before he left his mortal coil. And he feels like his father helped put them in this. Can you imagine that?
That's rough.
That's why this entire thing is so devastating. Is that it's easy to say everyone is affected when someone goes to prison. You need to see it if you've never experienced it. You need to understand what it means for an entire family to be reeling with something like that. Especially, I mean, take a look at Raymond's situation where there's a brand new person who comes in, hears of this case through living in the same city, right? And has probably come to the conclusion, like many people, that these boys did it because they said they did, you know? Uh, didn't even like have a connection or anything with or understanding, even watching her husband talk to his son every day on the phone. That was a nuisance. That wasn't her even seeing him as being a good father, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Like that was just taking away from her and her child and wasn't a sign of a good man. Anyway, that shit tore them all the way apart, right? And put Raymond in a situation where he had to do illegal shit to get out of that situation. This uprooted all of their lives, not just the boys. So to be so flippant, like, well, it just had to be them when there's no evidence to it, and be so forceful and aggressive with that when those lies are just disposable to you then. Like, there's no way that you can't pull that thread and understand that if this happens to this 14-year-old, that there's a support system or a family system around them.
Yeah.
You know what I keep coming back to, and I don't care if I'm biased because I'm a black man. I just look at this situation and I think of. Did anybody see that movie White Man's Burden with John Travolta?
Nah. I keep hearing.
No.
I know. I remember the
I
concept. I just didn't watch it.
So basically,
Yeah, I
just in a
can't say that
nutshell,
I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
the concept is everything was flipped. So
Right.
white people are the people that have been oppressed and have been economically backsliding, and the black people are affluent and the upper class. And basically, it's just a glimpse into that flip. You know, that's been done in many movies. But I think of it in this sense: if it was a black judge and a black prosecutor, black DA, black lieutenants, black police force, and five white teenagers, I don't think we would have done this to them.
No. No.
I can't even wrap my mind to think that we would have done this to their children like they so willingly did to us.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't rack my brain. That hurts me so much. I just think about it like that, and I can't. I know we've never been in that position to do things of that nature, but I just don't think we would have done that to them.
I
Remember
don't think the
the
desire is grand enough for the fake ass scared that white people are, that that's what black people want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the idea that black people want to gain power to enslave white people to stick it to them. Like, nah, nah. That's
Right.
not
we
even
don't
on.
even come to each other's fish fries. We're not trying to get together.
Man, like that's not even on the fucking radar,
That
man.
race war,
Like,
y'all.
But
That
remember
race
when
war,
they
y'all
first
ready for it? Like it's not happening. We're not
right.
doing that.
when they first rounded up the boys, they had them all in a room about to give them family death court tickets. Like that's how you look at boys roughhousing, and that's why I like that the miniseries showed that they just kind of harassed the bike riders, but didn't like beat them up. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's what I think happened. You know what I'm saying? Like they did have the altercation with the other guy, and that happened too. And those guys were old, and they even got arrested on their own. The ones that and the
Right.
guy identified those specific boys that beat him up, and they were older. But like to just to to immediately morph a group of knucklehead boys, I call them
Mm-hmm.
knuckleheads, running around in the park as this roving wave
of raping Wolverines is insane.
Yeah.
It's insanity to me to willingly dehumanize people like that. I don't care if you never seen these boys in your neighborhood. I don't care if you didn't grow up with them. They're still boys.
This is why the dramatization is
Period.
so important. That's why the
Yep.
dramatization is so important for that reason. And then also going back to what you were saying about Antron still dealing with, his father, how he feels about his father. You don't get that from the documentary. There's no way to get that from the
Right.
No,
documentary. You got to see that happen the way Antron has retold the story. And my pop came back in the room and totally flipped on me. You have to see that to be like, oh my God, okay. All right, we get it. We get it.
man.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Was the case of the exonerated five a case of public lynching? Do you see the correlation between the branding of the exonerated five, back then called the Central Park Five, to Trayvon Martin, to the characters of others who have been killed by police? Was Corey Wise like, Emmett Till personified?
Yes.
I know that.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, I know that's just pretty much a yes or no question.
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. In the question, you've explained all of it.
Yeah. Okay. Moving along.
I mean, but again, as we keep going, Corey really hit me hard, y'all. That just
Yeah, I
and
think it's let's take a pause and talk about Corey. Like that.
Yeah.
That's too important to go past.
Hmm.
so first of all, let's give a big ups to the actor that played Corey Wise. First of all, I just want to shout out the all the actors did an excellent job. I would like to personally shout out all the young actors that portrayed them boys when they were younger.
Mm,
Yeah.
Stante Black, who played Kevin, Ethan Harris, I hope I pronounced that right. He played Yusef. Um, Marquise Rodriguez played Raymond. Khalil Harris played Antron. And somebody I want to talk about, Jarrell Jerome played Corey Wise.
Hmm.
Award winning portrayal, first off.
yeah, like
And
hit the
whew,
reggae horn.
Yeah.
what, what, what resonated with you about the portrayal of Corey and Corey specifically, his story more?
Oh, boy. Um, there were. It was all of the nonverbal acting things he was doing, all the nonverbal communication when he was on the street with Youssef, when he was in the courtroom, when he was in prison for the first time, and when he looked at that dude at the second place and was like, I'm not supposed to be here. Like,
Mm.
I
Mm.
just started sobbing. Like, he's a baby, that he's not supposed to be there.
Mm.
And how are you grown men looking at him and not immediately trying to protect him? Like, that's a baby and you can tell he's terrified. This isn't the menacing super predators that they make you think that exist. Like, this baby is rocked. And I like, oh my god. His portrayal was incredible. Like,
Yeah.
beginning to end. There's
What
there's
got
no
me
no question to me why he got to play the full span of that man's life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
right, like yo, we're just gonna let you grow your hair out.
You just keep going. Get a beard.
The part that got me like weeping, seriously weeping, was when he was daydreaming in his cell, as you are wont to do
Mm.
when you're in solitary for 23 hours. You start seeing things, you start, talking to yourself. When he imagined the scenario about Yusef tapping on the window and him chilling with his girl.
Oh, I'm
Oh
not going.
man.
Now, I've been to Coney Island, y'all. It is an idyllic place when you're a teenager or even an adolescent. You're running around. There's rides. It's dangerous on Coney Island, but the park was pretty much you can go have a good time. And
Mm.
to see him running around the park on what could have been, quote unquote, running around with his girl, I
Getting to
could
be
not
a
take it.
kid.
Right.
I could not take it. That was heartbreaking for me. And he was just in that
Completely.
stone box.
I could not take it. I was just so heartbroken for this kid. Because again, I just saw me in him, not him specifically, but that he just resonated with me,
Right.
and I'm glad
Hmm.
I dedicated a whole episode to him. That was pretty important to me too. Um,
His
to see
story,
him,
just uh, from beginning to end, is like the saddest story in the world. You know, like it's every
he
crack
literally
you
was.
could slip through, he slept. You know, he slipped through. Like, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah, all the way
Like
down.
the all of the things that were supposed to catch him didn't catch him.
Yeah,
But he wasn't even like at risk. He was just going down there to help his friend. And when the mom snatched Yusuf up, she didn't just look to her right. Remember, I liked how they
Oh
shot
my God,
that.
that moment.
yeah, that was tough.
And then they remember the cops needed another person to glue it together.
Yeah,
So they
and
probably would have just forgot about him too. So they, oh, there goes another one. Grab, oh, damn.
mhm.
Oh,
Yeah. Those moments of him knowing he went there specifically in respect of Yusuf's mother, and then to see
right.
her be so
Mm,
dismissive to all of them, and specifically Corey,
right.
was
But again, it's that not one of those. I thought about
infuriating.
it that long. I thought about that long in terms of like her not helping them in their connection. But isn't that what we talked about earlier? Until it happens to you, do you not have to like circle the wagons and like, yo, I just gotta protect my kid? Like, does that not kick in
You
immediately
know,
for a parent?
I feel you. If there was a situation where my kid is caught up and my kid is innocent and everyone else is guilty, and I'm pissed that y'all haven't exonerated my child or something like that. But this is literally y'all in the same fucking boat,
Right.
except for Corey. Like Corey's not in your boat. They were all in the same cell before their pretrial thing, and he was like, "I just want to be in there with y'all." Like
Mm,
another moment of me just sobbing. Like
mm,
his trajectory completely shifted when they tried him and convicted him as an adult, as a 16-year-old boy
mm,
who, add on top of that, can't read and can't hear well. So your learning issue right there, and the insecurity of that is a real quick reason why a kid doesn't go to school. You know what I mean? Like he's not a truant youth out there fucking up people in the park. He's at the store buying chips, walking around his own neighborhood
right.
Thank you.
Right.
because you've allowed him to get to high school without being able to read. And I mean you, as in everybody there,
Yep.
mom, uh, and the school system. You let this baby, he can't read. He has no business being in high school then.
We
Mm,
all know
And then you
about that.
expect
That
him to
opened
sit
up.
there and pretend that he's learning? Like, come on.
right.
It's the saddest story in the world. Like every single thing that could go wrong went wrong for that kid. And the moment that he's like getting advice, maybe not to do the transfer because you could get anywhere, and he's like, "Nah, my bad luck gotta be done. I gotta
Oh,
be
that
done."
train.
Mm,
What else was heartbreaking about the portrayal? When mom said to him, the first couple of times she came to see him, I don't have anything to give you. And she meant it. I couldn't
Yeah,
imagine how painful. Like,
my
you
God,
literally
oh
can't
yeah.
give your son anything.
you
There's
don't
nothing
have
you could
points.
do. You
Right.
can't beat somebody up outside. You can't go work for a week. Like, you're really stuck. Your other son is out there in many ways. I'm just, oh man, I felt bad for her.
Yeah.
The
Real
whole
bad for
situation, for him to, God, there's so much there. I'm there's so much there.
her. Let's not get bogged, but there was a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'll move forward. Let's move forward.
Am, did you want to add in?
No, you you guys pretty much nailed it. You pretty much nailed it.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
hogged that. I didn't
No,
mean to.
no, it was yeah, no,
Salute
this
to
is
Corey Wise.
yeah, it's good.
salute
It's
to
a good
Antoine
listen.
McRae, salute to Yusef Salam, salute to Raymond Santana,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
and salute
Mm-hmm.
Lil Kevin Richardson, but I
Yes.
want to say wrong. Um, just salute to those boys, and again, I don't care what people say. Black people, our DNA is built on survival. You are not going to destroy us,
Yeah.
no matter all these attempts. You're not going to destroy us. We're going to be resilient, and they're the epitome of that. Let's get to the other demons in this issue. I want to talk about Trump and Linda F. Fuck her, Um, I
Linda,
mean, what's
don't
her
say
full name?
play Fairstein.
Fairstein, Fairchild, what's her last name?
Fairstein, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Fairstein, whatever. Fair demon. Um, now, and just to preface this question, just for the listeners, Trump took out a full page ad in the New York Times, and the headline was, "We need to bring back the death penalty." And he was referring to the exonerated five and their alleged crimes and how he felt they should be punished. An ad
Wait,
in the New York Times back then. Yeah. Well,
wait. You got to give the full page ad, which was bring back the death penalty, bring back our police.
Yes.
and that was an expensive ad. That's where we have to start. And
Yes.
secondly, everybody would either see this ad or talk about this ad because, like I told y'all, the papers are running furious on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally selling papers, and so Trump pretty much brought a public lynching on these boys with this advertisement. And I
Absolutely.
think I'm not sure y'all the timeline, but I think it was before their conviction. It was probably during the Trump
Oh, it
Yeah,
definitely was.
it was.
They were not. They were not. At that point, they were accused. So
Okay.
guilty until proven, or innocent until proven guilty is what that's supposed to be, and not even a little bit. Is that how that went? You
Mm-hmm.
put out a full page ad calling for the death penalty without having a conviction, without having a trial. That's absolutely a public lynching. That's absolutely saying these black boys don't deserve to live.
Right. And it's also um, re, it's reinforcing the fear that's already there and giving all of these boys horns, sharp teeth, and tails.
Yep.
The
That's the
public
dog
looking.
whistle of it all, right?
Yeah.
The dog
Uh,
whistle of it is the rest of them too.
yep. So I pose to y'all this.
what do you think? And this is a two-part question. It's about Trump and Linda. What do you think Trump calling for the death penalty was all about? And we alluded to it when we introduced it. The victim was not the first woman raped or left for dead in New York, and she wasn't the last. So what
Mm-hmm.
was his focus on that?
I,
The
th-
location, Central Park is a little rarefied air, you know. And also, do you think that Linda F was truly convinced that these boys were guilty? Was she trying to make a name for herself, or was she simply trying to appease the public with a quick arrest?
so
What do
um,
y'all think about these two people?
for Trump, I think it was another opportunity to make something about him. Period. He didn't care about this woman at
Mm-hmm.
all. The fact that this
Mm-hmm.
case was in the public eye, this was an opportunity for him to come out as a white knight. This was an opportunity for him to act like he gives a fuck. That's all it was. That's all it. It's all it ever really is. He does everything for applause. Everything he does it for applause. As far as Linda Fairstein, I don't believe at any point that she thought these children were guilty. We watched her lie and lie and lie and lie and lie. This was just in service of shutting the case down quickly, um, being able to say we caught the guys. It was an easy out. It was a very easy out for her. I mean, first thing she said on the scene was a person. She recognized that it was a single person that dragged that woman into the off the trail. But she
Hmm.
saw an opportunity We got a bunch of these kids. What are we doing? We have our suspects. Why are y'all wasting my time here? Like, she was kind of upset with the other cops in the room. Like, what's all this conversation for? You mean to tell
But
me there's
she
a
did
room
see
full
the
of
one.
kids? Was a room full of black
She's the
kids
one
over there?
identified. But wasn't she the one that brought the drag line and the one set of footprints? Like she was the one that
Yes,
pointed that out on the scene.
yes, she was the one. Precisely,
But in
precisely.
her eyes, she saw a slam dunk with a room full of
That's
black
it.
suspects.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that
Maria.
I think that riot that she says happened in the park, I think part of that is a bigger part of this story somehow. And I only say that because she continuously brings it up. And it's like she found the worst of that group of terrible, scary predator kids. And that's part of we got them. They're locked up now. You can feel safe again. And it's all theater. Because if you ever gave a fuck about actually catching the person who did this, you put your energy into finding who did it,
Right.
not moving and shifting timelines to fit a narrative that shouldn't exist. So you allowed effectively the person to be out raping and murdering people for years after.
Yep.
And he actually did rape and
Yes.
kill somebody
That's exactly what happened.
a little while after.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he was responsible for the rapes prior to that. He didn't
Previous.
even try to connect.
Right. They
Right.
didn't even match the
it was
pattern.
like it's a weird comparison, but like remember when they honed in on OJ? There was no other suspect to be even talked about or considered, and I thought that was strange for me.
Well, in this instance, they had the person that killed him. So.
Right.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
You know.
yeah.
That's a super bad example, Castro. They had the right person the whole time.
No, his son from his first marriage did it, and he helped him cover it up.
Oh, okay.
Wait, what happened?
Yeah. His son from his first marriage did it, and he helped him cover it up.
Oh, for sure. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's simple things, and I'm not gonna get into it, but drips of blood with that amount of blood, that's not drips. You've been soaking in that shit. Anyway,
I'll give you that. Anywho, yeah, the idea of like he killed a pregnant woman, like all of this whole I'm an advocate for women and I'm a this,
yeah.
I'm a that, like
Use a lie.
fuck you.
Right.
What are you even doing there? Like I don't understand people that get in these. Well, now she does, yeah, and she wrote a bunch of fucking crime novels. But like in the interim, when she's I'm the leader of the sex crimes unit, and I'm here to advocate for victims. Like, why are you in that position? You're not doing that.
Right. They left this
Who
woman
are you
for
fooling?
dead. That's all she kept saying. They left her for dead. You don't care.
She saw a pretty white woman and was like, "How dare they? How dare they?" And yeah, there's a group of black kids, and all of a sudden that must be them. Like, quick math.
Real shit. Real shit.
What was the second part to the question, Castro? That was a very heavy two-parted.
Yeah, it was Fairchild and it was Trump. What was his thing with the death penalty?
His motivation.
Yeah. I mean, I think I wouldn't have said it better than Ambush. Like, I don't pretend to ever know what the fuck he's thinking or doing. The only thing that I feel confident in is that it's only self-serving. So anything he does is to serve him in some way. I don't think 5 black kids dying for him to get whatever it was that he was vying for mattered at all.
Right.
Wouldn't matter at all.
He wasn't even in the political arena back then. He was just a personality at best.
Exactly.
We didn't even have the
He was
the
trying to
reality
become a
of it yet.
personality. All the fuck he
Yes.
was a real estate dude in New York.
Hmm. Just like a million others. It was no
Right.
personality. You know,
This is
what
a
they have
part of
now.
creating him.
Hmm.
Yep.
I
And
appreciate the fact that
I
they.
also want to point
Oh,
out. I
go
want to
ahead.
point out, and people are aware that he still doesn't acknowledge their innocence, and still thinks they're guilty of doing something somehow. I didn't read the little
You know what?
article.
I don't think he genuinely thinks they're guilty. It's more embarrassing for him to apologize.
Yeah, he just
Yes,
won't
He just
apologize.
won't. Yeah, he just won't
Yeah.
apologize.
But see, here's the thing. This is the same thing I think with Miss Linda F. And I wanted to get into this. It's like the court of public opinion would have understood if you said something simply as this. It was a certain climate back then. New York was a very dangerous place. And these were the suspects that we thought we had at that time. We were mistaken. Simple put. You don't even really have to apologize. And they wouldn't have dropped you. To me, it's again, there is a part of you that wanted this to be true.
It's ego.
Yeah.
I'm not wrong about this. I wasn't wrong about this then. I'm not wrong about it now. I covered this. I told you there's a sixth person who actually did the rape. It's ego.
Hmm.
The fact that she just wrote a fucking op ed to the Wall Street Journal to say, I've been defamed, is ego.
She's
You didn't want to be portrayed in a certain way, and you were, and you're mad. That's it.
she
Ava.
She's
writes
more
crime
upset about
novels.
how she was portrayed and that she thinks that these boys were a part of this 30 large gang riot going on that was terrorizing all of the occupants of Central Park.
Hmm.
She thinks because they had to be a part of that, they definitely brutally hurt and maimed other people. So maybe they didn't do the rape. Fine. But they were still guilty of something.
And imagine if she caught them beatboxing and breakdancing in a circle. And they would have shot them on sight.
Listen,
Definitely.
Ava spoke to her interaction with Linda too. I think it was CBS Morning or one of
Oh,
these
she had to
shows.
interact with her?
Well, she reached out to her, and
Mm.
you let everybody know that you're doing that. Someone's portraying them, and you reach out for commentary and things
Yeah.
like that, perspective. And Linda was like, unless I get a say in how I'm portrayed, I'm not. No, you get nothing from me. And Ava was like, cool,
she
cool on
was
that,
also
bro.
concerned she was also concerned that they were talking to the men.
Mm,
She was upset that she was consulting with the men and was like, so I want to see what basically the story is before I do anything. And Ava was like, okay, bye.
right. This
I,
ain't
I
about
don't
you.
have any obligation to show you that this story isn't about you.
Right. Fuck out of here.
And chick, it's public domain. It's court record. I could make my whole screen go away.
Easily.
Get away from me. Leave me alone. And I have other people that give me testimony. Leave me
She's
alone.
she recently though in that op-ed she wrote that the it was falsely portrayed that the boys were held without being able to eat or have their parents or go to the bathroom if and said something to the effect of if that were true it would have they would have said it already and it would be a part of the record.
Dumbass. Yeah.
They all said it.
Like the idea that you can lightweight use that's light work lying. That's not even trying lying. You know what I mean?
She's never
Like,
had to try, but yeah, you're right.
but like that's not even that's just so base level that like if at this point when you're trying to like change what happened in history, you got to give more detail than it didn't happen because I said so.
Right. No one ever said it happened, so it didn't.
You're talking about boys that are if you don't believe them. So boys that are claiming that they were coerced. You think that those same boys in the same time period were like, Also, they didn't let me eat. And on who do they tell for the record?
Right.
Where do they go to?
It's hard to admit monstrous acts, even when you still are a monster. You
Mm.
don't want people to look at you as a bad person.
You don't
I
want people
get
to
it.
know.
And you don't want
Mm-hmm.
people to know the truth. Like I
Mm-hmm.
like the scene with the cop. He was like, that was good. He had to storm off because he knows it's wrong. You know it. Like I always tell people, like morality is simple because physically we feel it. Now, if you're a
Man,
sociopath, if those things, that's something different. But when you do something wrong, you feel uneasy, you hope to get away with something. And when somebody comes up to you out of the blue and gives you some credit for something you didn't even know that they were paying attention to, you feel inherently good. I don't know if it's endorphins or whatever, melatonin, I don't care. There's a physical reaction, and they knew
Yeah.
they were doing wrong by these boys. They knew it. They all knew it. All right.
well, and the
Um.
readiness and the it's almost like natural to defend the actions instead of like just like you said, just objectively taking a step back and being like, were the times different than they were today? Was I maybe like no self reflection at all? You know what I mean? It was just like
Mm.
immediate aggressive defense of y'all basically weren't there. You don't know what you're talking about. These boys were awful. They're animals. I mean, the
Right.
amount of times they called them men and animals in this shit,
Yep. Yep.
just full blown dehumanization of children.
Right.
Children. I'm sorry, I can't stay on track because I keep getting really upset.
You're on track.
Somebody
So
tell me.
You're fully on track.
You're right on. You're right on schedule.
Yeah.
So then I want to roll into this question because I was thinking of remember the black cop that came in and said, "Oh no, that's Antron McCray."
Mm,
Was trying to vouch for him, and they weren't
mm-hmm.
trying to hear it.
Yeah.
So, what were your thoughts on the black presence throughout this process? The black correction officers that mishandled these
Whew,
guards.
man, this shit was rough.
do y'all feel as if this depiction of these guards' behavior highlighted the fact that not only white people in power can use the system against us, but so can your own people?
Certainly.
And what are your thoughts on the white correction officer that helped Corey ultimately? And kick this one off.
Um, I think it was an accurate depiction all the way around, especially considering we're getting this from Corey. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, this is, his recollection of the events. But then it's also just real. I mean, we've had these experiences with black cops. Black cops don't treat us so differently than white cops, especially in black neighborhoods, predominantly black neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
They come through,
Yep.
they come through like the worst. You know what I'm saying? Flexing that muscle. So seeing that correctional officer behave that way, yeah, definitely, definitely dead on.
Yeah, that dude is specifically, that correctional officer is, um, gonna flex that power in every single moment that he can because he can't do it in other parts of his life. So
Yep.
that overcompensation and that uh, is the kind of shit where you splinter. So he's the I'm not you type of black people
Right.
because I'm not on that side and I'll never be on that side, but doing the most criminal shit.
Mm-hmm.
And because that power system is flipped and he is the one doing, the one in power and also a criminal, he doesn't even see himself as doing criminal shit. It's just when you're that powerful, you get to.
Mm.
The shit's disgusting. And it's what white supremacy does. It permeates people differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you experience it differently, which changes the way that you then interact with the world. And anybody, regardless of race, who can look at those children and want to fuck them up and all of that shit is you're a sociopath.
Right.
But this
Hmm.
particular black man having that interaction with that was such a weird um, we ain't got no stars in here, and you ain't
Yeah,
fucking special. That's some fucking wild ass house Negro shit. You know what I mean? Like that's
yeah, call it what it is.
this is the
No,
kind of shit that white people don't understand how deeply impacted black people are by white supremacy, and
yeah,
why it's so important to understand that we are not a monolith and we don't all think the same. We process trauma differently. There
Hmm.
are definitely black people that hate black people just as much as you do.
Oh yeah.
and that to me is hurtful. I don't want to expel them. I don't know if white people consider that, but like black people that don't like black people, I feel sad. I feel like that's so
I feel sorry
tragic,
for them. Yeah.
you know. And but but at the same
What
time,
an
us
existence.
being black folk, we still want to bring them back. We still want to mod squad them
Yeah, there's still a
and bring them back to
compassionate
life.
compassion there. Like,
Drop squad.
what happened, baby? Who hurt you? Come here.
Hmm.
We still want to drop squad them and reprogram them. It's crazy.
Okay. Drop squad.
But I just
what was the second part of the question?
yeah. What were your thoughts on the white corrections officer?
Look, I think that there are people that are in the jobs that they're supposed to be in, and there are a lot of people that aren't. And I think that correctional officer was an angel when Corey needed him.
Hmm.
Like that's what correction officers are supposed to be. If you are talking, or if you are thinking remotely about rehabilitation, there shouldn't be this power dynamic that there is. There wouldn't have to be. You wouldn't have as much aggression if you weren't overly aggressing to them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So you see that a mutual respect got that everybody's gentle
Yeah, I mean it's a
between those
perception.
two. I don't mean the rest of it. I mean,
No, no,
um,
it's great. It's a perception. He saw Corey as a person
he
and
saw him
not
as a child.
chattel and not chattel, yeah, and not chattel to be herded.
Yes,
If you're a
Yeah.
correctional officer and you think you're just herding cow, that's one thing.
right.
But if you're in there thinking they're like, yo, these are people too, and they're already marginalized by society,
Yep.
and I know some correct, we're in our isolated situation, which is prison, and somebody has to look at you like you're human. You don't have to lose
Right.
all of that coming to this place. So I know your crimes and I probably know your whole file, but I'll speak to you like a human, and that can bring people from the from the depths in there. It's just
Yeah. It's human
it's
decency that's supposed to be normal. It's supposed to be
Mm.
like this is the thing that they've chosen that job. You chose
yes,
to do that. So you're the person who decides to be there every day. These
Right.
other people don't. They have no choice. So you are going into a situation where you need to have an exorbitant amount of patience, care, and understanding. You know what I mean? This isn't that shouldn't be ever thought of like clocking in and doing your 10 to 12, or your 9 to 5. You know what I mean? Like there's so much more shit happening there that or needs to be happening there
Hmm.
that and that's one person who was doing exactly that. And I don't know if he did that with everybody or if he looked at him and saw him as a child. Like the reference was he had a son, and if this happened to his son, he would want to know someone was looking out for his son.
Right.
Like
Right.
you have, in order for you to have that moment, you have to see him as a child and not as the super predator thug that they told you he was. And even if he is that, he's still a child. Like there's a
Right.
humanization of all of that.
Right.
We're in all of that.
yeah, man, this is
So I
heavy, y'all.
appreciate the white cop. I mean, he was a savior for him. I appreciate that guy.
Hmm.
Yeah, there are allies. There are allies, and like we said, this came from the mouth of Corey, so it was good that he was able to dramatize that corrections officer.
in a manner to show that he was one of the beacons to help light that boy's tunnel.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I think we are close to the end of our train of thought. Anybody have any final thoughts?
Man.
Would you recommend this series to others?
I've seen a couple posts online where people are like, I can't watch it, but I'll stream it so it gets the views. I'll play it in the background, but I can't watch it. I get it. I get it. Everyone needs to be able to process um, information like this on their own time, and when it's right for them, because it's hard, and you have to be prepared for your day, your week, your month to be changed by taking in this information. Um, Especially as a drama, it's totally different than getting in this documentary. So if someone feels as though they can see it and they haven't yet, yeah, I would recommend it. Yes, see it, definitely check it out. Um, but again, like I said, I also understand those that can't.
Okay.
Mine is slightly modified. It's close, but the way I feel is people of color should take their time. Black people specifically, take your time. If you can't watch it, don't watch it. If you can't consume any of the content around it, don't. Protect yourself because you know this story already and you've likely lived vicariously, if not directly. So take your time. I don't think that white people should get to take their time. I think they have to, this should be required viewing. And
Mm.
I feel like if you're able to watch this and not want to act in some way, shape, form, or fashion, and by that I mean research it more, find out how you actually feel about it, and then maybe look into something else like someone else's case and understand that this is not an isolated incident.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that you know black people that know somebody who's living this right now. There is no major separation when it comes to the criminal justice system of variations of blacks the way that people who live out here do.
Um, you brought it up, Morgan. I was going to allude to this. You said this should be required viewing for white folks. Is this required viewing for mothers and fathers of black and brown sons, as well as black and brown sons themselves?
Mm. I think it's an
Is that
important watch. I don't know that it's required. I think that you don't, as a black person, you don't have to watch this to know that this happens.
Right.
You don't
true?
have to watch this to
Yeah.
necessarily understand the emotional impact. You likely know a story real close in your, no 6 degrees of separation, two, three, one. Like, so I don't know that you have to watch this to talk to your children about it. I think you can emote all of the emotions with just knowing the facts of the case. We are that dramatization talking about it with our children.
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't think you have to do that as
Okay.
black mothers and fathers.
Um, me, I agree, but I'm also super radical. I think yes, I would recommend this series. Yes, this is required viewing. This should be showed in junior high schools, grades 6, 7, or 8, and up. Um, and
I love all of this, by the
because
way. Yes, all of this.
yeah, I just think it's just you have to look. I went and saw Glory when I was in I think it was 5th or 6th grade. I could be dating myself. We all went as a school with like 7, 8 buses to see
Mm.
Glory, and I remember people thinking that was culturally significant, like a watershed moment. And I feel like this is too. Um, this still affects Antron McCray to this day.
It still affects
You know,
all of them. Make no mistake.
all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of it. I just want to bring up how this man wasn't able to forgive his father before he passed,
Yeah,
all
I'm sorry.
based on a lie, and being forced to tell. So I mean, of course, all of the boys. So, um, yeah, I think this should be required viewing, all schools all across America, and I think there's more to come. Let's put all of them in there. You know, you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
watch this, you're gonna watch that. Just like I watched all your movies way once upon a time.
Right.
I wanted to I wanted to allude to if any listeners or any supporters do want to help, you can go look up the Innocence Project. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's many to help. You can donate to people inside. You can donate to people that recently got exonerated. You can sponsor. So I just would tell people to go look up the Innocence Project. I am going to do that myself, and that's how I'm going to contribute to this cause. So I invite anybody to join me. Um, that's all I got. This is heavy for me.
Yeah.
I will watch this series again and again because I like the place that it took me in terms of like lighting a fire and just caring about my people and wanting a whole lot of stories to be told in truth
Mm-hmm.
and loudly. So like,
I will say before we close, I watched it with the girls yesterday, and
oh wow,
um, it's interesting to see. And I noted this earlier about how when you have certain experiences, things hit you different. So it didn't hit either one of them the way it hit me, but they were both so concerned that something like this could ever even happen. Like, we talk about how things happen with interactions with police, today, but we've not talked about coerced confessions, and they've never seen a kid in an interrogation room, like
mm-hmm.
the things that were hitting them were they saw kids because they are kids.
Right.
So they see themselves like, wait, that could happen? Oh
Mm.
no. Oh, well, this is
Mm-mm.
wrong.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
sobering, but
Yeah.
it's important, and I salute Ava. I don't want to go off the air without giving Ava DuVernay her props.
Real talk.
Like we said, the cinematography is gorgeous, and I think sometimes stark and lasting images can help a memory stay relevant, can help an issue
Absolutely.
stay alive,
Mm-hmm.
and can help us all stay human a little bit if we remember things properly. So, yeah, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, yo, this got me thinking of was Tawana Brawley telling the truth? So all you listeners that are a little too young, look that up. I think you'll see some similarities.
Mm.
All right, that's all I got. A podcast has no name, no song today.
No song today, yo.
No song.
Thanks for
Hit that
listening.
Patreon though.
Yeah, hit that Patreon. Hit that good
Oh,
Patreon.
we got that Patreon. So we asking for money too. Go to Innocence Project and go to and open up another tab and go to podcast has no name Patreon. And we keep bringing you eclectic content such as that. Oh, give me the loop. Oh, that's the song. Give me the loop. Give me the loop. Don't even have toys. Give me the loop. I got no name. Give me the loop. Give me the loop. Rapping all hype.
We made it.
Players want to jump and dragons done. And then they die.
Okay.
But we still need money to get alive.
Okay. All right. Slow down.
Good night.
Right.
Bye.
Excellent. You're still here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of A Podcast Has No Name. If this is your first time checking us out, please subscribe. We are available on Google Play, Apple Music, Spotify, and pretty much everywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcast Has No Name. Deuces.
Subscribe, please, please, please. Click and comment.